These string trimmers have not seen the light of day for the last several months, but it's finally time to get them out and started for a really good reason too. The reason why is because we're having our annual garage sale and I've got a lot of trimmers to get rid of. Most of these were repairs from the end of last year, so hopefully they'll start up. But if you're having a hard time starting your string trimmer, then this video should help out. In today's video, we're going to be trying to start all the string trimmers I've fixed during the off-season last year. Most all of these were found for free, and unfortunately, it was during the fall season when no one's thinking about buying a string trimmer. That meant fixing them late in the year and then keeping them in storage until the beginning of the next season. Of course, that means all these machines have been serviced and should start up with no problems. However, I'm not 100% certain if one or even two of these haven't been in the shed for longer than 2 years. So I was supposed to empty the fuel systems, but unfortunately some of these still have fuel in them, so we'll see if that fuel stabilizer works or not. Also, if the engine has an electric start option, we won't be using it and only pull starting it instead. We're going to go in order from right to left, and we'll start by putting about half a tank's worth of fuel in each one of them. So I am using ethanol-free gasoline, and I've also got it stabilized just in case I leave the fuel in the machines for a long time. Now the first trimmer is a Craftsman WS210 I found for free. Now I've had it for a couple of years and only just got around to fixing it. This one has a red choke lever and 3 positions for the choke. It's also nice that they have the starting instructions printed on the side of the cover as well. So after purging the air from the system, we'll then move the choke lever to position 1 and then pull the rope no more than 5 times. Unfortunately it stopped, but it did run for several seconds. We'll try that again and see if we can keep it running this time. This time it stayed running after some trigger squeezes, but to make sure it stays running, we'll turn the idle set screw in just a bit. That one put up a small fight, but hopefully the next one won't be that bad. Now the next trimmer is a bright yellow Bolens model BL110. It also looks like I need to replace this pull handle before the garage sale too, but I'll do that off camera. And as you can tell, this one is exactly like the last one, so we'll try and start it the same way as before. Now, even though it didn't try and start, we'll go on to the next step. Just remember and try not to pull more than the stated number when the choke is on in the first position. Otherwise, you're going to flood the engine and it's going to make it even tougher to start. The next string trimmer is a Homelite from about 20 years ago. Now this one is going to be a bit different, and that's because the choke system only has 2 positions and it also has an automatic bypass when you squeeze the trigger. That means we can't hold the trigger down when starting it, otherwise the choke will turn off. Looks like the recoil has a problem pulling in all that rope, but it'll still work. So it did take several pulls, but it finally started, which isn't bad considering it hasn't been started in quite a while. The next trimmer is this gray Ryobi, and this one will be just like the first 2, the only difference is the way the choke lever works. We just need to press on the purge bulb about 10 times, but this is when we find our first problem. Unfortunately, after doing that, there is no fuel inside the bulb. Now if this happens to you, you'll need to press on it more times until you see fuel in it. The likelihood of it starting with no fuel in the bulb is almost 0. So if you don't see any fuel inside the bulb, don't even bother trying to start it. Now the problem could either be the carb or something as simple as the fuel filter, but until you get it fixed, starting it will be impossible. So the next string trimmer is a Craftsman WC210, and this one will start just like the first two, so this should be fairly routine. So it did struggle a bit, but with some coaxing, it stayed running. Now you have to keep in mind that some of these were tuned when it was barely 50 degrees outside. The next string trimmer is yet another Homelite, however this one is much newer. The instructions look fairly simple, but I'm going to change them. On this particular Homelite trimmer, it's best to assume that the engine is already flooded with too much fuel. So I would recommend trying to start it without the choke first. And since it didn't start, we could then follow the printed instructions and choke the carb. So here's a tip. Anytime the carb is fully choked, just be careful when pulling on the rope. Trying to unflood one of these engines is not fun at all, and you're going to tire yourself out. Now this is the second to last one, so we're almost done, but this time it's an oldie. Now this Echo GT 1100 might be a curved shaft, but it's still an Echo. Just remember to turn on the switch, otherwise you're going to make it a whole lot worse when you flood the engine. So the sticker that shows which way to move the choke lever is unfortunately gone. That means we need to look at what the arm does to figure out which way to move it to choke it. And it turns out that full choke is when the lever is all the way down. Also for this one, you'll need to fully squeeze the trigger while trying to start it. So here's another piece of advice, and that is when you turn it off, move the lever back to the on position. That way, if you forget to turn it back on the next time, you won't flood the engine on accident. And the very last trimmer that we're going to start is this featherlight from Weed Eater. Now to be honest, this is the brand I use most often, and that's because they're so light and easy to use for long periods of time. There's nothing wrong with a big powerful steel trimmer, but without a neck strap, they get really heavy pretty quickly. Now this one doesn't weigh all that much and is also pretty decent on power. Now apparently they had a lot to say on this sticker because they had to use a small font to get it all to fit. Now hopefully this one starts because I would like to go 8 out of 8 for successful starts. I hate to admit it, but this one didn't even put up that much of a fight as the others did, which can only mean that it must have been tuned on a day that was a lot warmer. So the good news is that all of them started, some better than others, and only one needed minor attention. But the bad news is that we now have to try to get them sold, but there is a problem. Would anyone even want to buy them? I am going to tell you that the garage sale already happened, and even though the turnout was pretty good, we only sold 4 of them. So what was the problem then? Was I asking too much for them? No, I don't think so. But it turns out a lot of the buyers had pretty much the same question. And that was, do you have any high-end trimmers like Echo or Steel? Now the answer was yes I do, but they're on a totally different quality level, so don't expect them to be cheap. So my question is, would you buy any one of these 8 trimmers I just showed you? And if so, which one would you buy and how much would you give? Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your time here. Please feel free to ask me any questions about this project or about your own projects, and I hope to see you in the next video.